can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.
You're tapped in, so let's get right to it. So, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, the Sahel states, or better known as the AES, has flat out told the United States government no to its farm products. And from the looks of it, Donald Trump is not very happy as a result of that. Add to the fact that the Sahel states, or the AES, has also pretty much rebuffed U.S. approach, or the U.S.'s approach to all three of the Sahel, the AES, U.S.'s approach to them in terms of also military cooperation, um, uh, mining, and things of that nature. The U.S., Donald Trump specifically, is not too happy with that. But for sure, France is not. But this is not about France. This is the U.S. seeing an opportunity, we think, to seize upon an end into the AES's productivity and resource bonanza. You know, they have so much over there. But the approach was actually different and wasn't geared towards the the resources that the country possessed that no other country actually has. Instead, it was the U.S. trying to say, or saying to them, hey, we have produce, we have farm stuffs, we want to share with you. The AES told them flat out, no, we don't want it. All right. To make this clear, to give you greater context in terms of what I'm talking about, I do have a clip, and I'm going to show you that clip. Before we do, please like, share, follow, and subscribe to Tapped, the Art of Political Discourse, because you are tapped in for some of the best informative and educational content on social media. That being said, let's get to this point, because like I said, this is something that the U.S. didn't take too kindly to. The AES, who do they think they are? We're the United States of America. You know, you do that to France, but you don't do that to us. You know, I could just imagine Donald Trump in one of those situation rooms, or the Oval Office, said, "What the hell do they think they are? I'm Donald." You know. Anyway, the AES has been pushing hard towards agricultural self-efficiency, including the APSA Sahel initiative to reduce dependence on foreign, including U.S. seed imports, and promote homegrown non-GMO seed varieties. Now, Burkina Faso previously dropped U.S. developed GMO BT cotton, originally from MONSATOS. Now, if you know, MONSATOS is not really a very popular company or corporation. MONSATOS here in the United States have a lot of legal issues. Most countries understand that MONSATOS is not someone you want to do business with, because for the fact that most of their seeds and things of that nature are GMO, genetically modified, offerings, but they're not organic, So Burkina Faso told them, gave them a flat out no, we don't want it, especially if it's coming from MONSATOS. So that's not really a big thing in and of itself. Most countries, again, especially in the West, Europe, they don't deal with MONSATOS in terms of seeds and things of that nature, because they're quite aware of what MONSATOS does with the seeds. They go in and genetically modify them, making them unnatural. Let's put it like that. Now, credit to Ibrahim Traore, Burkina Faso, Goita of Mali, and let's see, I think it's Tichani of Niger, for having enough wherewithal to tell the United States and its buddy Monsanto's no and no thank you in regards to their seeds. But back in 2015, over yield/fiber quality disputes, that was an issue back then. And this is why Burkina Faso is telling them no, because again, previously they had this issue with GMO and Monsanto's. That was back in 2015. So those disputes took place back then, and Burkina Faso hasn't forgotten. But that's an older story, all right? It's not a recent rejection. Here's the broader friction between the U.S. and the AES states: travel bans/counter bans as of January 2026. So, because, of course, we know the United States, Donald Trump had put restrictions, travel bans on most of the Sahel states, African countries, travel bans into the United States. And in turn, what the AES did was, hey, okay, one good turn deserves another. They did the same thing, put travel bans on American citizens coming into the AES states. But so yeah, those travel bans or counter bans as 2026 went into effect, but nothing ties any of what we're talking about today directly to this issue in terms of farm products, the farm products rejection. But that happened. And the clip is going to give us more insight in terms of what that was. So the context is what we need. Now, without further ado, let's jump in here and let's find out why the AES, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger told the United States no to its farm products. And again, that's not a shock. It shouldn't be a shock to anyone, because when you look at the EU, the European Union, and most of the West, they don't accept a lot of things from the United States based upon the lackness of the FDA and what the FDA allows the United States to grow. A lot of what they grow is sprayed with all sorts of pesticides, and not only that, it is GMO. A lot of Western countries, they're not having any of that. So a lot of stuff that's produced in the United States doesn't even, in terms of what's edible or consumable, doesn't make its way to the EU or the European countries. So let's get to this clip and let's find out what's going on. Why did the AES say no to U.S. farm products? Okay.
While most leaders just talk, Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traoré actually did it. He gave thousands of farmers modern machines, over 600 tractors, hundreds of tillers, pumps, and harvesters. He said it simple: if the farmer is strong, the nation is strong. And today, every field echoes his decision. Traoré proved it. A real leader doesn't make promises. A real leader stands with his people. Hit that like and drop a comment. Respect Traoré.
Putin offered free wheat, and Traoré said no. He kicked out IMF loans, bought tractors, trained farmers, turned prisoners into agriculture soldiers. 3 years later, Burkina Faso's storage facilities overflowing. Grapes now grow in the Sahel. The country that begged for aid now exports food.
Let us consume what we produce. Our lands are rich, our farmers are hardworking. Let us produce, process, and consume. We are not obliged to have the luxury or modernity that we seek. But what we want, we can achieve it. The wheat must be produced here by my farmers, processed here, all the way to the bakery by my farmers. I didn't used to eat chocolate. But today I can tell you that sometimes I even send people to go buy chocolate. There's a master chocolatier here in Burkina Faso, Master Payala. That's the only place where I might say I'll get chocolate.
With just a couple of weeks remaining for the rainy season in Burkina Faso to commence, the Burkinabe transitional president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has just impressed his people by handing over hundreds of agropastoral equipment and inputs to Burkinabe agricultural producers and peasant farmers in the villages. Captain Traoré, who just a week ago stated that there's no need for Burkina Faso to import foodstuffs like wheat and rice, because the country has the potential to produce what can sufficiently cater for its population, has today, on May 6, 2024, handed over a total of 400 farm tractors, 1,000 motorcycles, 710 motor pumps and other farm inputs to Burkina farmers in the rural areas, in what translates to his administration's move to facilitate them, in order to boost the country's agricultural production.
Welcome to the breadbasket of West Africa, Burkina Faso, where everything is grown in abundance. This is tomato. If you're from Ghana, this is where your tomatoes come from. If you're from Ghana, this is where your onions come from. And guess what? I decided to come and check some of the farms that your tomatoes and stuff comes from. But listen, one question that I really want to ask, that it's extremely hot in here. So how do you guys survive in terms of being in this hot sun just to produce some of us in a very good weather tomatoes? This is crazy.
Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré has launched a major national farming project, promising that every citizen will be given land to farm. He said this plan will help end food poverty across the country by making sure people can grow their own food. President Traoré also stated that Burkina Faso does not need international aid if it can produce its own food, calling on the nation to rely on its own strength.
I make over 100K with Realize, and I'm about to show you my exact ad strategy. CPMs are right.
One of the highlights of Ibrahim Traoré's ascend to leadership in Burkina Faso is the fact that he has brought to Burkina Faso people productivity. They can be proud in the fact that he is creating infrastructure for that country where infrastructure did not exist previous to his ascending to power. Keep in mind also that France had been there in terms of their corporations, their mining corporations, and their military. And yet, Burkina Faso was a very impoverished country at the time that would include Mali as well as Niger. Since the expelling of French forces as well as French corporations out of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, all three countries of the AES have grown expeditiously in terms of productivity, in terms of infrastructure, and things of that nature. True that they have this issue that still exists with so-called terrorists in the Sahel. However, it is known, or it's been alleged, that France is using these terrorist organizations, the JNIM, as well as Al-Qaeda and other affiliates, to attempt to destabilize the Burkina Faso government, as well as the Malian government and the Nigerian government, none of which are those attempts have not been successful, of course, yet they are distracting. And those in the AES, they hate the fact that they have to continue to focus on that while they're making plans and focusing on building up the country after 5 or 6 rules of neocolonialism by France. So, you have to tip your hat to these 3 lions of the Sahel for the efforts and the progress they've brought to these countries, respectfully. So it's a phenomenal thing that has taken place, and most of us should be in awe of what has accomplished in the last 3 to 4 years in those Sahel states, or that group of the AES. I think those were oranges. And, oranges, absolutely.
The announcement was only 3 paragraphs long, but it sent tremors through commodity exchanges, agricultural markets, and diplomatic circles around the world. Released simultaneously from 3 neighboring capitals, the declaration confirmed that the Alliance of Sahel States had suspended imports of several major American agricultural products while launching what officials described as the Food Sovereignty Initiative. Within minutes, trading floors reacted. Agricultural futures fluctuated sharply as investors attempted to understand what had happened. Shipping companies received urgent requests to reroute cargo already crossing the Atlantic. Exporters contacted government agencies seeking clarification. Financial analysts rushed onto television screens, trying to explain why a decision made thousands of miles away suddenly dominated conversations inside America's agricultural belt. Most observers had expected negotiations, very few expected rejection. For decades, imported food products had been viewed as an unavoidable part of the region's economy. Population growth, changing consumption patterns, and expanding cities had created significant demand.
Now, couple that with the fact that most European countries or countries in the West, they have continued to bombard the Sahel states, and that would include Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, as well as others, with the false narrative or propaganda that they could not get anything done or accomplish anything without France sanctioning those things, supporting those things, and deciding finally if those things should take place, as well as having the backing of the IMF as well as the World Bank for projects that we see taking place now in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Such sad circumstance that they would be led to believe that they could not accomplish before the three lions of the Sahel came into power, that they could not accomplish anything without France, the IMF, and the World Bank, as well as the United States and Great Britain, being involved in these projects.
Foreign suppliers believed those markets would continue growing for years. Instead, the alliance announced a completely different vision. The document declared that no nation could achieve true economic independence while relying heavily on imported food that could potentially be produced at home. Every dollar spent importing products that local farmers were capable of growing represented income leaving rural communities. Every shipment arriving from overseas, according to the statement, represented an opportunity that had been lost somewhere inside the continent. The announcement was not framed as an act of hostility. It was presented as an investment. Rather than simply limiting imports, governments unveiled one of the largest agricultural development programs in the region's history. Billions were allocated to irrigation systems. New seed research centers were established. Agricultural universities expanded dramatically. Rural highways connected farming communities to urban markets. Cold storage facilities appeared where previously harvests had spoiled before reaching consumers. Modern grain silos transformed food storage. Solar-powered irrigation replaced unreliable seasonal rainfall. Digital farming platforms allowed producers to access weather forecasts, market prices, and financial services from mobile phones.
Brands are quietly shifting to mobile game ads, and most marketers have no idea. Let's go see why.
The transformation.
Again, we're looking at a transformation that is astounding on the face of the transformation, because most European countries, France and particularly the United States, to add, did not think that they had the wherewithal, the AES, or those three countries of the AES, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, to accomplish such feats in such a short time. So astounding and astonishing all in the same breath.
Began almost immediately. Across the countryside, abandoned farmland returned to production. Young graduates who had once searched for opportunities abroad began launching agribusiness. Companies at home, agricultural cooperatives formed across villages. Banks introduced financing designed specifically for farmers. Local manufacturing companies started producing tractors, irrigation equipment, fertilizers, and processing machinery instead of importing every component. What surprised international observers most was the speed of coordination. Instead of each country pursuing separate policies, the alliance.
There is a profound and deeply offensive irony in the sight of French President Emmanuel Macron standing before the grand podium of the United Nations General Assembly. A leader of a European nation arrogantly assuming the
Oh, I'm sorry, everybody.
Against ordinary citizens. Yet the leadership in Ouagadougou demonstrated a level of philosophical sophistication.
There is a
to access weather forecasts, market prices, and financial services from mobile phones. The transformation began almost immediately. Across the countryside, abandoned farmland returned to production. Young graduates who had once searched for opportunities abroad began launching agribusiness. Companies at home, agricultural cooperatives formed across villages. Banks introduced financing designed specifically for farmers. Local manufacturing companies started producing tractors, irrigation equipment, fertilizers, and processing machinery instead of importing every component. What surprised international observers most was the speed of coordination.
Well, again, what surprised France and the United States most was the speed and coordination of this enterprise. So, again, when we're looking at the development of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, it is developing beyond the expectations of those who once colonized those countries and colonized them purposely to prevent any type of development and or advancement on the world stage in terms of independence and productivity to serve their purposes as well as those around them and anyone else who were willing to buy the products from them.
Instead of each country pursuing separate policies, the alliance created a common agricultural market. Border inspections became simpler. Regional transportation expanded. Livestock moved more efficiently across neighboring countries. Seeds developed in one region were tested across several climates. Farmers shared techniques that increased yields while reducing costs. Within months, supermarket shelves looked different. Products carrying local labels gradually replaced imported brands. Restaurants proudly advertised meals prepared entirely from regional ingredients. Television campaigns encouraged consumers to support domestic producers. Schools began teaching agricultural science alongside entrepreneurship, emphasizing that food production represented national security as much as economic opportunity. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, the consequences became increasingly visible. American exporters who had viewed the region as a growing destination suddenly faced shrinking demand. Warehouses filled faster than expected. Shipping schedules were revised. Commodity traders searched urgently for alternative buyers. Large agricultural corporations reassessed expansion plans that had been built upon projections of continuously growing export markets. At first, many industry leaders believed the alliance would eventually reverse course. History suggested that ambitious economic policies often softened under market pressure, but the opposite occurred. Harvests improved. Regional trade expanded. Food imports declined steadily. Foreign investment shifted toward processing industries located inside the alliance rather than toward export distribution networks. The policy had begun changing incentives throughout the economy. International development agencies took notice, instead of funding food imports. During stable periods, they redirected resources toward agricultural research, irrigation, and farmer training. Private investors followed. Food processing plants appeared near production zones. Packaging companies expanded. Cold chain logistics created thousands of new jobs. Export terminals once dedicated primarily to imported food gradually handled increasing quantities of processed agricultural goods produced locally. The transformation extended beyond economics. Political leaders discovered that food security strengthened national confidence. Communities.
Welcome to Iron Beam, the future of futures trading. With our cutting-edge chart trading,
Previously dependent on imported staples became increasingly resilient during periods of global market disruption. When international shipping costs rose unexpectedly, domestic production helped stabilize prices. When drought affected one region, neighboring alliance members supplied shortages through integrated transportation networks. The strategy that many critics had initially dismissed began attracting attention from other parts of the continent.
And that is where or how Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger began to take control of their sovereignty or represent themselves as sovereign nations, finding solutions to problems that a lot think that were initially placed in front of them to stagnate them and or derail any project that they set in place for themselves in terms of productivity and improvement in the country in terms of farming and things of that nature. So you have to tip your hat to these three lions of the Sahel because they did exactly everything that France and the West, as much as the United States, told the world they could not accomplish. They did every bit of it. And again, these guys should be recognized for their efforts. If you're going to give a Nobel Prize, it would be, to those three guys. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are on a course of improvement, or on a course of, oh my God, the West is recognizing that what they're doing is being done in such a way that no other supposedly impoverished country could ever achieve. They're developing or making strides that other countries that were like them and not as worse off could not have made happen. This is what astonishes the West, France, and the United States most. How is this possible? Three ex-colonized countries coming up from under the boot and heel of France, as well as the United States and Great Britain, to achieve such things in such a short period of time is flabbergasting, to say the least, for those same countries that had predicted they would not get this far. So again, this is something where you have to pay homage to these individuals, these countries, because they've decided to go about things their way and not in the way or in terms or the terms set before them by others. This is quite extraordinary to see Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger do the things they're doing in such a short period of time. Tell us what you think about this clip. Does it make sense? Would it behoove Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali to not accept seedlings or GMO type seeds from the United States, knowing full well that MONSATOS is the producer of these seeds, and so therefore the seeds have been genetically modified? Or is it, or could it be to their detriment not to accept the seedlings from the United States / MONSATOS when they are fairly young in terms of producing their own produce and shipping it abroad? It's not necessarily believed that they need these seeds. They're doing quite well with what they have. So what do you think? Should they accept the aid and or the support of the United States / MONSATOS, or should they just go on about their business and not worry about other world powers intervening or wanting to include themselves in the productivity and advancement of those three countries? Let us know what you think. Put those thoughts in the comments, and for sure, we'll tap back in. All right. Until next time, take care of yourselves and one another. All right.
You can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.